On Thursday, the 24th of February, Russia invaded Ukraine, and ever since, the region has been decimated under intense missile strikes, and millions of people from Ukraine have been displaced. But why has this happened? In this video, I will be evaluating the causes of the Ukraine-Russian conflict of 2022 and attempt to present an objective perspective as to why Vladimir Putin has invaded Ukraine. This video has been composed with research from leading historians, political scientists, and geopolitical analysts to shape my views. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy this video. When the USSR or Soviet Union dissolved in 1991, the new republics of Ukraine and Russia were recognized by two significant countries, the United Kingdom and the United States. The fall of the Soviet Union also meant that several former Eastern Bloc nations joined NATO, meaning North Atlantic Treaty Organization, due to the growing Russian aggression and Russian power projection in the region. As a result, the surrounding countries around Russia feared Russia as a great power in the region and opted with the United States-led coalition to contain the development and growth of Russia. For the most part, European countries had to choose whether they aligned with the United States or with Russia. This is because the United States and Russia were the two great powers at the time, and as great powers, they pushed smaller countries to decide what world they want to live in. Before diving right into the reason for the invasion, it's very important to see the history of relations between Russia and Ukraine. Ever since, Russia, as a great power in the East, has constantly meddled with the affairs of Ukraine. This is a common and popular behavior of great powers. They aim to exert their influence on surrounding countries to serve their own national interest. This is mainly because of security, but it also serves other interests like trade and political influence. This is the same with Russia. Great powers will impose their will on smaller powers to assert their dominance in the region. Without going into too much detail, great powers do this to maintain their own survival. In 2014, the Maidan uprising happened in Ukraine, which saw the removal of pro-Russian President Viktor Yanukovych in February 2014. These protesters were weary of Russian influence and a pro-Russian stance in Ukraine, so clearly there were still anti-Russian feelings in the country. As a result of Yanukovych's removal, the Russian military took control of key infrastructure in the southern region of Crimea and seized the Crimean parliament. Once again, this is how Russia asserts its influence on its neighbouring regions and also to counter growing European support for NATO and the United States. Once again, Russia is a significant power and will always try to dominate its region. So what followed was a controversial referendum whose outcome was for Crimea, the Ukrainian area, to join Russia. Many Ukrainians saw this as the work of the Russian government, who arguably pushed the referendum in Russia's favour. This is because Russian troops were present in the region, and as a result, Crimea was annexed by Russia in 2014, meaning it was no longer a part of Ukraine. This election was famously known to be held at gunpoint, suggesting that the Ukrainians had no choice because the Russians would assert military action. Now, the real reason why Russia invaded Ukraine was as a result of Ukrainian NATO membership. While Putin claimed that the Ukrainians were Russophobic, inciting tensions and repressing Russian speakers in Ukraine, it was not the true reason for the Russian invasion. Putin and the Russian government were angry and sick of growing NATO expansion in the region. If Ukraine was to join NATO, they would be obliged to point weapons towards Russia as a balancing act to contain their growth. So, from Vladimir Putin's perspective, the invasion is an attempt to balance against NATO's growing power. New NATO members have joined NATO because, in their eyes, the economic opportunities offered by NATO and Europe are far more valuable than the Russians, and also they seek security from Russian aggression. Now, most countries would rather side with Europe and the United States because of their global economic significance, and it's enormous in comparison to Russia's industries of agriculture, oil, and gas. In other words, most European countries would rather side with Europe and the United States than with the Russians. So, Russia, acting in its own interests, decided to invade Ukraine on the 24th of February 2022. Some political analysts believe that Russia has no other option because it has limited economic and diplomatic influence, and a military invasion is a last resort move. In summary, all states will act in accordance with their self-interests. In the situation of Russia, Russia believes that invading Ukraine and asserting military aggression is in its own interests, regardless of the humanitarian consequences. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please let me know in the comments section below for future content.